Hey, kia ora. Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Surprise in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast number 1632, Ramblings. I screwed up today. I'm allowed to. You're allowed to screw up every now and again. But what happened is that Fridays is the day I put my weekly newsletter out. And I got working, and I didn't get a chance to work on it this morning, which I usually work on it this morning, fine tune it a little bit in the when I finish work in the evening after I come back from the walk, and then send it out. Yeah, no, I didn't get a chance to do any of that. So I've been working on it, and I suddenly looked up and went, oh, I have 2 minutes to get online. What am I going to talk about? And I'm like, I have absolutely no idea. My mind just went, yet I've put all the stuff into the newsletter this week, and my brain just went blank when I was thinking about what am I going to talk about? So we got ramblings. It's Finish It Friday. If you don't know what Finish It Friday is, it is when you get rid of all the stuff on your desk. You basically finish off any projects for the week, get done on Fridays, make sure they're all finished and complete. So when you come in on Monday morning, everything is good to go again. But yes, I'm fiddling again. I've got the TikTok live going as well. I've actually enjoyed this week where we've something that's sitting right here on my cheek that catches the bottom of my eye. I think it's still there. Hang on. I have no idea what's it. Anyway, it'll annoy me. Don't worry about it. What was I going to say? What are we talking about? Finish It Fridays. Yeah. So Friday is when you get everything off your plate for the weekend so that your desk is nice and clear and clean, and there's no project sitting there, so you're not thinking about it all week going, oh, crap, I've still got that project to finish on Monday. No, we finish everything on Friday, and we celebrate that we have had a phenomenal week of productivity and getting a lot of stuff done. And what else can we do with that? Yeah, we just finish off the stuff of the week. We finish on a strong note so we can celebrate. We've got the weekend to celebrate. We've got the weekend. We're not bothered by anything over the weekend with stuff that we have to do if we get it finished on Friday. Now, for some of you, your Friday may be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Sunday, because it depends on how you work. And I totally get that, totally understand it. It's Friday for me, so I get my weekends off. Well, technically I kind of do, but Saturday I end up working a lot for my genealogy clients, maybe some travel clients in there as well. But everything else is done during the week. And because I love a genealogy, so I want to have time. I don't want to be on too much of a time. Well, I kind of am on a time constraint, considering the fact that I'm paid by the hour. So yeah, I kind of do that. And I have a 5-hour package and a 10-hour package. And so I am fully aware of those, but it means I'm not constrained on, I have to, I've got from this time to this time, I can only put an hour in here or an hour in there. No, we try and get as much done as possible when we're working on those on the weekends. So that's why I like the weekends. What else can we talk about? So what did you do to finish off your week this week and have a Finish It Friday? What are you going to do to celebrate? What are we doing to celebrate tonight, Zeph? She's just like, I don't know. She's like me. I'm so like, what are we talking about tonight? And she just like looks at me and just turned her head away. She's like, whatever you want to talk about, Ma, we'll be fine. So that's Finish It Friday. So we've got some a lot of stuff that got done this week, a lot of productivity and things. Some projects got done. Oh, I can cross this one off because that got done. And so as soon as I finish here, I've just got one more section on my newsletter to finish, which is my editorial. And then I'll be getting ready to send that out. So if you want to get a copy of our newsletter, just go to beforedirtnapnewsletter.com, and that's B, the letter B, the number 4, dirtnapnewsletter.com. And you can sign up there for our newsletter, and that'll be going out. Let's see, we're at 7 o'clock. Oh, it'll be going out before the bottom of the hour, before 7:30 Mountain Time. I'm not going to go on there. Yeah. I actually got asked about how to tell for the time zone differences by somebody who's here in the US. I'm like, really? You're asking me that? I can't even figure. I mean, we have one time zone in New Zealand, and I come to the States and there's like, 5? You've got Eastern, Central, Mountain, Pacific, And then isn't Hawaii and Alaska on different time zones? I don't know. I just get confused. And so I just go to Google and say, what is the current time in, or I go to my phone where I have the clocks in there, and I sometimes have different cities and different time zones in there as well. And of course, when daylight savings comes along, oh my gosh, then you've got another one that's thrown in there, because you have those states like Arizona that doesn't do daylight savings. So you now have Eastern Daylight Time, Central Daylight Time, Mountain Daylight Time, Mountain Standard Time, Pacific Daylight Time, which happens to be the same as Mountain Standard Time. And then, of course, you've got Alaska and Hawaii. So it's kind of like I tell you, I've been in the country almost 27 years. I've lived in this country, and I still get confused on the time zones, where I have to Google them or look at my phone to see which cities in which time zone and what time they are. I mean, I can work out New Zealand's time very, very easily. I've got that one down pat, simply because of how many hours ahead they are. So it's now 7:07 p.m. Mountain Standard Time here in the US. And in New Zealand, back home where my mum and dad are, it is subtract 4 hours. So that takes it from 19 down to 15. So it's 3:07 p.m. in New Zealand tomorrow on Saturday. It's subtract 4 hours. At this time of the year, we subtract 4 hours to get the time in New Zealand. So it's because, they're 20 hours ahead of us right now. And then when they're in daylight savings, it goes to 5 hours. Oh, they're in daylight savings right now. When they come out of daylight savings, it goes to 5 hours. So it's very easy to figure out things like that. But just some of those other ones, I mean, here in the States, I get confused with them all the time. 27 years in the US. What's it been like? What are some things I still struggle with after 27 years in the US? Which way to look when I'm standing on the pavement? When I'm standing on the pavement to cross the road, I still can't figure out, do I look left first? Do I look right first? Which way do I go? And we used to have, my dad used to be a traffic cop in New Zealand, and the traffic cops, when they existed, they've now merged with the police. So they're all policemen now. So when they were still the traffic cops, and the traffic cops were that's what they did. They just patrolled the traffic. They attended the traffic accidents, did investigations on those. They did all your speeding tickets. They did the drunk driving blitzes, anything related to the roads, including checking trucks with their loads. Are their loads legal? Are they overweight? Are they underweight? What's the driver's hours? Anything related to the road, they did. The police did everything else that was not related to the road or traffic. I forgot. So the Ministry of Transportation, which is what the traffic cops were part of, the Ministry of Transportation, they had these little songbooks, which had these little, very simple music things to play. And my mother wouldn't let me take piano lessons, but we had the original version, a version of an electronic keyboard at home, which was called an organ. And it was just a single keyboard. It wasn't one of those multi-layer ones. And so my mum sat down and said, here's middle C on the keyboard. Here it is on the notes. This is how you read the notes going on the treble side, because that's the side that was in these little booklets. And so I taught myself to play based on this little traffic book that we had. And it had these cute little ditties in there. And the one about crossing the road was, how did it go? So I look to the left and I look to the, when there's not a car in sight, I work smartly across. So I can't remember. I used to know these things. There's the one that's got, we almost obeyed them, even the Queen. Yeah, but they had these little things in there about how to walk across the road. Look to the left, look to the right. And I often have to put that through my head to go, okay, so now I'm in the States, I've got to look right and then look left and then look right again. Just these little things that come up. Spelling, that's another one, the spelling thing. You guys use Z's. Z's? Yeah, you call them Z's. We call them Z's. Yeah, see, we call them Z's, you call them Z's, we call them Z's. Where you put, like, if you're doing like realize, you've got L-I-Z, or you guys call it Z. Is it Z you guys call it, or is it Z? Now I'm confusing myself. L-I-Z-E, so L-I-Z-E, and we make it L-I-S-E. So there's those sorts of differences. Then we've got things like color, where we have L-O-U-R, and you guys drop the U. So it makes it very challenging when it comes to doing crossword puzzles to try and get words to fit in when we spell different ways. And I have this one, I love doing those, what do they call them? Cross sticks, I think it is. code words, where they have the grid and they have each box has a number in it from 1 to 26, and each number represents a letter. And I haven't been to the magazine store lately to get any more books. I have a box of them somewhere around here, and so I don't want to go buy any more since I already have some. But I do the code words on the iPad. And what is interesting is that sometimes they actually spell the word with an S instead of a Z. Z. Which is kind of confusing because I go in there and I'm like, oh, they've got an S in there. And I kind of feel like, cool. And sometimes I have had the odd word where it's been O-U-R instead of O-R. I'm like, oh, this is fun. It has a bit of English and a bit of American, mainly American spelling in there, but a little bit of English one slipped in there as well. So what other things? Yeah, you guys live to work instead of working to live. That's been the hardest one for me. Is everybody's all about work, and packing kids' schedules with after-school activities and sports and all the stuff that they do after school. I mean, the kids have such a busy schedule. I'm like, when do they eat? When do they sleep? When do they play? With how some kids' schedules are. And I'm so like, wow, that's just so, everybody's just so busy. And there's times when you just gotta stop and take a breath. And then I found myself getting caught up in that. And I was like, no. So that's why I've gotten so strict with my calendar, where I've turned around and said, I am in my office from 8 a.m. in the morning to 5 p.m. in the afternoon, Monday through Friday, and that's it. Anything outside of that is me time. There are occasions where those rules get broken, and that's simply because I have a mastermind group that meets on Thursday evenings once a month, and they also meet on a Saturday once a month. But weekends are typically my own, unless I'm attending a one-day event or a two-day event. And the weekdays are pretty much set for most things, unless there is an event on that's one day or a two-day event. Although I do have my 5-day International Genealogy Historical Research Conference coming up in July, and that's a week-long thing. So that's a whole separate thing. You know, it's like it'll be like a vacation for me, because I'm going to be learning about genealogy, which is one of my absolute favorite things to do. I mean, how long have I been involved with genealogy? So as long as I can remember. It's been one of those things that has just always been around. And my mum actually started doing research the old-fashioned way. It was with boots on the ground and going to the different registers, the libraries, the archives, things like that, actually looking up records in a card catalog, and finding the record, filling out the little form, taking it up to the desk, or even looking on microfiche to find the record number and filling out the little form, taking it up to the desk. Sometimes you have to pay for them to search for the records. Sometimes you didn't. It just all depends which records we were, where we were, and things like that. But actually going into those places and having them bring out the actual ledger with the record in it and things like. And some places you weren't allowed to handle the register at all. You were allowed to look at it, make sure it was the right one, and then they would go and copy it. So yeah, I remember that one. We were in the National Archives one time. This is in their old building before they moved into the new building. And picture this. You go in there, they've got the fluorescent bulbs in the ceiling. It's not bright light in there. It's a little dim. You got that old book musty smell, and I love that smell. It's a little dusty. There's records on shelves around you. There's this huge card catalog sitting there. And my mum and I have been in there a few times, and this time we were looking for my second great-grandfather's coroner's report. We're looking for his coroner's report. And because he had fallen off a barge in the Clutha River and had gone missing. And he fell off the barge in May, which was the beginning of our winter in New Zealand, and he wasn't found until August. And when his body was found and dragged out of the water, they held the inquest. Now, to hold the inquest, they did that in the local pub or bar, the local public house. And the local public house in those days was used for everything. It was used for schools. It was used for church services. It was used for town meetings. It was the central location in the town where everybody met for all sorts of things. It wasn't just a bar for drinking. And they pushed some tables together, put his body on top of one of these tables they'd laid out. I know it sounds gross. He's just come out of the water after being in there for 3 months. And they're asking people how they knew that this was my great-grandfather. And sorry, great-great-grandfather, my second great-grandfather. And so we're sitting, so Mum and I are sitting there in this place, which is very, very quiet. You talk on a whisper. It's got to, it's just like really quiet. And there's all these people around and nobody's saying a word. And Mum and I are sitting there and we're reading through this thing. And one of my second great-grandfather's workmates turned around and said that he could identify this being Henry Brazier because of the boots on his feet. And the coroner asked him what was so special about the boots on his feet. And the workmate turned around and says, oh, they were specially made to go around the corns on his feet. And Mum and I just looked at that. We looked at each other and we started getting the giggles in this very quiet, serious place where you weren't allowed to whisper. If you whispered, it had to be a quiet whisper. And so we just started giggling. And but we had to send the book back and ask them to copy the coroner's report for us. And we walked out of there with the coroner's report. I actually have, well, it's not in here. It's out there with my other genealogy stuff. I actually have that copy of the coroner's report. And but out of all of the stuff that was on there that helped identify my second great-grandfather's body, that was the thing that stuck with both of us. And we got out of there and we just started laughing. We could not stop laughing all the way from there back to where, did we park our car? Yeah, we'd parked the car that day, or had we taken the train that day? I think we parked the car, went back to where we parked the car. I can't remember that, but we'd either taken the train into town, into Wellington, and walked there, or taken the bus up there, or we had parked the car somewhere nearby. I can't remember, but we had a good giggle on that on the way home about the boots fitting around the corns on his feet. So that was one of those fun genealogy things that you find. I mean, the fact that he'd been in the water for 3 months was beside the point. It was his boots. So you come across all sorts of stories when you're researching genealogy, and to be able to actually go into archives or libraries or registers offices, the town office, to go in the parishes, to go into these different places and to be able to look at their physical records is really, really cool. Yes, when the internet came along, it made things a lot easier, but you have to remember this. There are so many millions and millions and millions of records out there that, I'd always been told that it was about less than 5% of all the records that are available are actually online. And somebody says, oh, that can't be right. They've got to have more than that. I says, no. And then I was doing I was at the International Genealogy and Historical Record Research Conference last year, and we had an archivist come in who works at one of the archives in, where was she? It was in Tennessee. And she said that there is less than, and that was her quote, she said there are less than 5% of all the records out there are available online. The rest, you got to go look for them. You actually have to go and visit buildings or write letters to get information, or emails and stuff to get information. And so I thought that was really cool, because that's basically how I started researching genealogy, was going to these places, looking up the stuff. Mum would write letters to go overseas to England, to see if in England and Scotland, to see if we could get copies of birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates. You had to wait like 3 months before you finally got a reply, because by the time it took the letter to get over there, for them to respond to the letter and send the stuff back, was anywhere from 2 to 3 months. So it was that 8 to 12 weeks we had to wait. But it was a very exciting time when that happened. And now we can look up a lot of the parish records and a lot of the civil records, like births, deaths, and marriages. We can look them up online in a lot of places, but there are still some places where you actually have to go into the office, or have somebody going on for you, or write a letter, or have another genealogist who lives in that area to go and pull the records for you, and that sort of thing. So it's become very much of a networking thing, even more now with the internet, because it's quicker to write the information down. And there are some places where their birth records, if you could tell if the mother was married at the time the child was born, because if the mother was married, in some places where if the mother was married at the time the child was born, the father's name would be on the birth certificate. If the father's name was not listed on the birth certificate, it is quite possible that it is highly likely that she was an unwed mother at the time the child was born. And that's why the father's name doesn't appear on the birth certificate. I had a client one time where the father's name was on the birth certificate, but not listed as the father. But he had been present at the birth, because it says, who's reporting this? And he said, that what his name was and all that. And he says, how is it that you come to know about this? He says, I was present at the birth. I happen to know that he was the birth father of this child that we were researching. But because him and his girlfriend were not married at the time, he was not allowed to have his name on the birth certificate. So he got his name on the birth certificate by being the witness to the birth and signed it that way. So there are ways that some fathers have gotten around about getting their names on birth certificates. And I had some great aunts who didn't like the fact that they didn't have a father on their birth certificate. And so the mother later on got the birth certificates redone with a father and filled in a father's name on that one. So, you find out all these little secrets and things. And like, you think, but children out of wedlock was a very common thing back then, even though it was a subject that you weren't allowed to talk about. And girls got sent away to have babies and all of this sort of stuff. It went on a lot. And it's not until you start researching the genealogy, you realize how many illegitimate children were born back in the 1800s. And I said to my mother, I said, it's a feast or a famine with this stuff. She says, what do you mean? I says, I didn't realize how many of my grandparents with all their greats in front of them or their siblings were born out of wedlock. And she's like, yeah. And she says, and I said, it was such a subject that they weren't allowed to talk about back then. And the children that got adopted out or got taken care of by married family members rather than the single mother wasn't allowed to raise her child. It had to be by one of the married members, or there was suddenly a shotgun wedding after the child was born. So it makes it very interesting when you're out there researching things. Some of the secrets that come up. I had another client one time who thought that her father had been adopted, and I actually found proof of it. And she came back and said, "Oh no, we found the information we needed. He wasn't adopted. He was born in the family, and his parents raised him, and all this." And I'm like sitting there with the proof in my hand, and it's one of those dilemma things of, do you tell them or do you not tell them? That is a really hard thing, but you have to be very clear with your clients up front to say there is going to be some stuff that that we may find that may upset you. In fact, there's bound to be stuff in your family history somewhere that when we discover it, it is going to upset you because it's not going to be what you thought it was going to be. And this is like what? I says, like, we could find out that, somewhere down the line, say a second or a third great grandparent weren't married, or the third great grandfather you thought was your third great grandfather wasn't, because he was the second marriage, not the first marriage where the child was born. And they're like, oh, do you think we've got some of those in our trends? Until we look, we don't know. But you have to be prepared for things like that. And it's like, oh, okay. So it's very interesting when you go and find these things and you've got to report back. And it's like, how do you tell somebody that they may think their father was born, but you've got evidence that proves that they were adopted or may have been adopted, or that the person they thought was their birth father wasn't, because you've got the documentation in your hand that says otherwise? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And they just wanted the case closed. And I ended up not telling that client simply because they said, oh, it's okay. We've solved it all now. We're fine. We've got it all sorted out. And this is what happened. Blah, blah. And they went on their story. And it was just the way they were talking is that it was a done deal. That's what they were going to accept. That's how it all happened. And turning around and saying, well, actually, it's not. Yeah, it was one of those calls that I had to make where I couldn't go back and tell them. So anyway, I've rambled on for long enough. So that's today's ramblings for today. Tomorrow we will have a different we'll have a topic for tomorrow. Yes, we'll have a topic for tomorrow. So again, we're about to send out this week's newsletter. So if you want to be on the list, go to before, that's B, the letter B, the number 4, dirtnapnewsletter.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter there, and it will be heading out the door in about the next 15 minutes. Well, as soon as I write the editorial and do the proofreading. So about 15 to 20 minutes. So anyway, everybody have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hei konera.